Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Futureworlds Metaverse podcast, episode number 7. Today, we're very, very lucky and fortunate to have Josh Neuman with us. He's the CEO of Melon, which is a very progressive, ahead of the curve metaverse development agency. We're going to hear some more about that. But let's welcome Josh. Thank you so much for coming on today, Josh.
Hey Steve, great to be with you.
Appreciate it so much. So I didn't know this, but I looked back at your LinkedIn and I saw that you actually were at BMG and you came out of the music business quite a bit. You had a lot of experience there, right?
Yeah, that's been the majority of my career. Absolutely.
I think we share that background a little bit. I was in management for probably 25 years, and I think you had a couple management companies as well, right?
Really, very similar backgrounds. We I think we both cut our teeth as managers, which is really like it's kind of an incredible job that you're sort of there's no formal education that really can prepare you for it. Um, but yeah, it sort of puts you in the center of so many different business structures that you sort of, if you're lucky to sort of embrace it, you really can learn so much about uh, so many different facets of both entertainment business, but just business and entrepreneurship in general. It was such a gift to come from that world.
I kind of found the same. I kind of got shot through the ringer, but it really was trial by fire. And you don't know what's happening tomorrow. I mean, every artist comes in and says, just tell me the plan. I said, the plan
Like,
is for you to be
right, whatever
successful,
that might be,
right?
let's figure it out.
Because whatever the first call or email is of the day, that's going to set the tone for something else that can happen. And I think you're right. You're kind of the CEO of the band. At least that was how it worked for my side. They're the boss. They're the decision maker at the end of the day. They're like the board of directors, but you're running their business, right? So you're trusted with. You've got the ball. You're the point of contact. You're kind of navigating through some weird waters. And I know I caught the very end of, I would call it the CD rock and roll phase, and then it changed, right? Then Napster hit and file sharing hit, and I think for me it was a different business. Someone asked me today, why aren't you managing? I said because I think the deals got really wacky after 2000, 2003 when I saw 360s come in, and I couldn't in good conscience have someone sign a record contract at that point. I know it's changed a little bit since then, but did you find that as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that my trajectory, I think I started my management trajectory probably, it definitely involved Napster because the first record that I was involved in was with a rock band called American Hi-Fi. And I remember tracking the song on Napster with file sharing and seeing where the fans were and seeing what other songs they were listening to in their playlist on Napster. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then you could actually contact people directly. So that was an incredible time. But I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be a part of a number of different cultural movements in music, kind of starting with the whole emo scene. Um, I helped co-found Crush, and I signed Fall Out Boy in a little cafeteria in Madison, Wisconsin. And their dreams and hopes at that time were just to be able to quit the coffee shop most of them worked at and just be able to play music full time. So yeah, it's been a incredibly interesting journey. I think I've always gravitated towards artists that have been a little bit, or movements and artists that have been coming from the underground at the time. And how can I get involved? I saw that that was where the audience and the culture was, but not necessarily where the traditional business was. So I've always been intrigued by, like, wow, there's something there. Maybe there's a place for me to help elevate it and bring that to the people in a way that would be authentic to the artist. So had that opportunity with the emo movement in the beginning, pre major labels caring, into all the major labels were signing everybody. And then I had another leg of my career where a similar thing happened where I got very involved in electronic dance music. And that scene was even bigger, hard to believe, but it was like I started to go see these artists and they'd be playing in front of like 6,000 people, no record deal. I was like, how do you guys like spread the word on your records? And like, oh, we have a record pool. We just send the records to, like, we're all friends. We send the records to each other. We play them in these clubs. Then they get hot and that's what we do. I was like, wow, that's the craziest thing. And then that sort of led to me meeting Tiesto and our team managing him, which, I mean, he was already an arena and stadium act when we met him, and he was on an like what wasn't on a major.
That's amazing. And so did that, I mean, I'm sure, because at least in my experience, along with that, you're getting attention from brands, other artists, all the opportunities start coming inward, and your job goes from saying, can I, to no, no, no. Is that what happened?
Right. Yeah, there absolutely. I mean, it was funny when I met Tiesto, he had never done a brand partnership.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, this is like such a like an untapped area. And what I came to realize was that the whole like brand industry hadn't really gotten their arms around electronic dance music. And it was sort of viewed as like taboo. It was like, oh, that's drug culture. And like, that's where, you know, bad things are happening. And I was like, this is like hip hop back in the day. And you said the same thing.
Totally.
And then now look, it's really just, that's where youth culture is. And you don't understand it. So let me try to help you understand the opportunity here. And it's funny, like a year and a half after we were managing Tiesto, he was on the cover of Billboard. And it was literally that, Steve. It was like, who's Tiesto? Why are all these brands working with him? Oh, and he happens to be an arena and stadium act.
I saw that with rap too. I worked my early days with Ice-T, and I was his manager, George's assistant. And it was part of the job was translating the appeal to the label, which, like you said, it's like you guys are a record label, but they didn't quite understand how it worked, how the production end of it worked, how the shows were put together. I mean, rap had a big problem with insurance at shows. Like agents, Kara Lewis at William Morris was booking us, and she couldn't get insurance at bigger venues sometimes. So it was, and payments were in cash. Remember,
Right.
I get half my money up front and half before I hit the stage. I said, okay, so were they going to cut you a check? And many times I was on the road with them, and they would give me cash, right? Like
Right. Just what you want to be walking around with in like Detroit or some anywhere, right?
like 25 grand in cash. And I
Right.
was the
Exactly
least,
what you don't want.
right? I was the least assuming looking guy of the whole group. So no one thought, oh, that kid with the jacket on's got, $25,000 stuffed in his sleeve. But yeah, that I completely relate. I've seen how.
I had the same experience when I started managing Tiesto, and he had his LA shows coming up, and it was 2 nights at the Forum and they were sold out. And I went to all my friends at the labels and I was like, you got all the A&R guys, and I was like, you got to come, you got to see this. And they were like, it was almost like so unbelievably not possible that an artist that they didn't know or that wasn't already signed could be doing like 35,000 people, that they were like, well, what else are you working on right now, Josh? Like, that thing you're doing is, don't really want to talk about it. I was like, oh my God, it's a Groundhog Day. We went through it with emo, and this is like 10 times bigger, and no one was coming out. And then of course, 6 months later, it's like everybody got you got a record deal, you got a record deal.
It's what's happening
Funny.
with the metaverse, right? Look at what's all the FUD that's being thrown at at Zuckerberg and everybody else. Like, oh, there's nobody there, there's nothing there. You're spending too much money on it. And I mean, in the last, I don't know, I'd say month, I've seen a lot of that stuff. And someone asked me, how do you know there's going to be adoption? I said, because I live in LA, I go to the restaurant, every single person is on their screen when they're sitting in front of somebody else. That's how I know. because this is going to be so much more compelling. What's on your screen right now times 10.
Oh
So
yeah, we're just getting started with what the experience is going to be like. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the proof is in the platforms that exist right now that do have massive traffic. I mean, kind of like wrapping up my trajectory to how I ended up in this
yeah,
world. Started working in electronic music, and to your point, started to work a lot with brands and talent, to the point where I was like, we're doing like agency work. It's way beyond management.
yeah,
So let's just start an agency to help the brands understand what's happening here. And we immediately had Adidas Originals, Heineken, Red Bull, and Samsung were like our first 4 clients. And we did great creative work, went back to them, and they were like, this is fantastic. We're going to amplify this on all the media channels. And we were like, oh, we thought we had figured out how to get the money as a creative agency. We need a media platform to park the dollars. So we architected an electronic dance music platform called Thump, and we took it around to different media partners, and we ended up doing a joint venture with Vice.
nice.
And so that platform tucked in under their umbrella of different channels. And then we really like supercharged our ability to sell brand partnerships, and also like our learning. Like I really didn't understand really how a proper media agency worked. And I got a money can't buy learning experience working with those guys. And I saw a company go from like a $250 million valuation, which to me at the time was staggering,
Yeah.
to a $4 billion company in like less than 2 years. And they were just like our homies that were like, yeah, we'll do a JV. And it was like the craziest thing to see this meteoric rise. And then they ended up acquiring us. And when they did,
What company was that?
what's that?
What company was it?
Uh, Recreation Worldwide was the company that owned the. It was a creative agency and also the partner in the media platform.
Okay.
And so they acquired us, and my creative director is this incredibly brilliant Asian American young guy who was like, I want to make a platform that celebrates Asian culture, Vice style, not like some cookie cutter, stereotypical thing. But he's like, there's millions of us out here, and there's no platform that celebrates people like me. And I was like, well, whatever you want to do, I'm in, because I thought he was absolute genius. His name's Sean Miyashiro. And Sean loved music, and he was like, I wanted to be like, very music centric. And I was like, great, let's start that off out of the gate in the right way. And so that was the beginnings of 88 Rising that I ran for the next 6 years. And now that's become a important cultural platform for Asian music. But I think like the whole world has really appreciated what it stands for and represents. So that was something I was incredibly honored to be a part of. During the end of that, during COVID, just being at home with my kids who are now 9 and 12, I was just playing a lot of like playing video games and doing whatever they wanted to do.
Sure.
And I was like, let's just do that. I'll make an avatar in Minecraft or, Fortnite or whatever. And at the same time, we were trying to get our kids to talk to their friends.
Good
Like
luck.
the way that, we were like, well, just go on Zoom and like go hang out. Like that'll be great. And it was really interesting to see like their underdevelopment of social skills in that environment was so deep. Like they could last about a minute or two, and then they'd be like, all right, later. And when I started to watch them do it with a social, like a social gaming component in the middle, it was like all these kids were together. They had digital representation of themselves in another world that they really had a connection to. And then they get on another screen and just start shooting the shit for like hours.
The sidetrack, right?
Yeah, no, like, and they weren't talking about the game. It was like they were talking about whatever little kids are rapping about. But that was it. It was, and then they come back to the game and they'd be like, oh, how do you do this thing? Like, let me help you do that. Let's just jump over here or whatever. And as much as, as a parent, you're fighting all the time to keep your kids off screens. At that moment in time, I was like, this is about as positive of an experience as I could hope for connectivity at a time when my kids were truly in quarantine and couldn't see each other. Like, that was crazy.
I saw the same thing, and you realize that's how they socialize, right? We used to go down the street and knock on someone's door and say, "Hey, can you come out and play football?" This is the new way to do that. They pick up a game, and there's four friends in it already, and they're looking at it. They jump in, they jump out, and like you said, that side channel is always going. Like the camera's pointed at the ceiling because it's an iPad laying on the
Right.
bed.
It doesn't even matter what they're looking
It
at.
doesn't matter, right?
So, I mean, that was really like a massive wake up call for me, that like there was an emotional connection to the digital worlds they were in. It was supernatural for them. And it was just like a blank canvas for what you could do in it. And Roblox really was the platform that captivated me the most, really because of the blank slate of creativity of what is possible in there. But also, as I started to learn more, I was like, well, my kid's on this, and so are all of his friends. And then it was like, there was like a moment when like I just started to talk to all of my parent friends, and it was like, oh, every kid's on this, literally every kid. And then I was like, I'm going to try to meet some people at Roblox. And I did. And then I started to like really dig into stats, and it was like, oh, like every kid's on this. And like 50, as it turns out, it's like 50% of all kids under the age of 16 in the United States are on this. And then on top of it, it's like when the engagement is, they're spending more time in a sitting than they do on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok combined.
Sure.
Bonkers numbers. And then, as of today, it's almost 60 million daily active users a day. So that is the metaverse as far as I'm concerned. Like, that's where they're at. And it's not just kids. Out of those 60 million, there's more 18 to 25 than there probably is in any other platform. But, we're viewing it as a children's platform just because there's so many of them on there.
And they're getting older by the minute. And I had this discussion with Les Borsay the other day too. It was the gaming part of it, because it seems like there's a gaming world and there's like, just Decentraland and Sandbox and everything. But I always thought, why is that? But it's because the eyeballs are there, like you said, and you've also got the technology that that the Unities and the engines, the gaming engines that have bandwidth to carry high resolution, a lot of animation, multiple players can at the same time. Whereas I know a lot of these areas or the newer lands, it's kind of 8-bit. You move slowly. You don't have this animation. So I think the gamers and the gaming platforms are way far ahead. But at some point, I think you're going to see a crossover of some of the feature sets that are in the non-gaming platforms, and they're going to become more gamified. People like to have a leaderboard. People like to have a little bit of a competition, reward system, an ability to buy and trade, all those things that you may get on the gaming side that maybe you don't have so well developed on the other side right now. But I agree. I mean, it's spawning out of the gaming side like crazy.
Yeah, hugely. I mean, the metaverse is really aggregated in Web 2 or Web 2.5 right now. And Web 3 has this incredible potential, and it will get there. But to your point, it's like the toolboxes that are currently available to build on are under construction. And that all, you combine that with just the fact that the friction of creating a digital wallet right now, it's pretty challenging. So you don't have the kind of adoption and audience there yet that we all hope and know. I mean, it's beyond hoping. It's just a matter of time before it's going to be heavily populated. But that's why we've been gravitated much more so to the Roblox, Fortnite, even Zepeto, a huge Asian metaverse platform. Like, that's where the users are, and we want to build where audiences, and as we're doing that, we're piloting into Web3 and kind of trying to figure out what works and how we might be able to drive major traffic into those platforms in ways that haven't been done before. That's really a big goal of ours.
Okay, so you come out of pandemic, your kids are heavily vested in Roblox. You start talking to Roblox, you pair them up with brands that you have relationships with, or how did that all come about?
Yeah, well, I was like in the learning phase, and they were so gracious to me. Like I kind of like got introduced to a bunch of people, and they were just kind of walking me through it. And at that time, I was really like asking 101 super dumb questions like, how do you build a game? You know, like I was going on like there was like a developers forum, and I would ask a lot. I'd ask developers questions in there. I was literally like probably getting answers back from like 12-year-olds. It was amazing. But they were great. But then talking to the company, I was like, well, let me ask you something. Like, are brands allowed to be here or not allowed? Because there was no recognizable IP in mid 2020, like very little, couple
Wow.
pilot programs here or there. You know, it's like, where's all the music? Where's like sports, fashion? Like, because I knew that the audience was there. So I was like, are you just not allowed to be here? Is it really hard to build? Is it expensive? What's like, why aren't they here? And they were like, honestly, nobody's building here yet. And that's like, you could build. And I was like, oh, like, but you guys like go, like, if I'm a brand, I need to come to Roblox and then you'll build something, I'll give you some money and you'll build it for me, right? And they're like, no, we don't build anything here. We build
You
the
build it.
box, you know, and we host it and we have all of these, you know, resources, but we don't build anything. Like developers have to build it. So I was like, oh, wow. So in theory, if I could have, you know, if I could scale up a development studio, then I might be able to provide that insight to my friends in across brands and entertainment that maybe don't have this info yet. And we could all collaborate and figure out what can we do on the platform. That was really like my hope. But of course, I didn't have a development studio and I can't build anything. So I asked Roblox, like, hey, could you introduce me to, you know, some development teams? And they were like, absolutely. And like everybody kind of recommended this one crew out of Florida that this guy, Devin Thum, was running. At the time, I think he was 23, had like a eight person team. And I was like, oh, I got to meet this guy. And then simultaneously, the music, like Roblox started a little music department. And I was like, oh, I've been waiting for this. Like, as soon as they hired John V, I was like hounding him, like, I'm gonna be your first meeting. And so we met, and he was like, yeah, I'm gonna do a music event. It's gonna be like a virtual performance in a world, and we're doing it with Ava Max. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, which studio are you gonna have build it? Because I know now that like you guys don't build anything. And he was like, everybody at Roblox has told me like I should work with Melon. They're really good. And I was like, oh, amazing. All right, now I really have to track these guys down. And I saw the experience came out, and it was great. It was early days, primitive, but they did a great job. So I tracked them down. And again, I was like, I've been thinking about this for like 6 months. Here's my vision. Like, what do you guys think? And they were like, whoa, like we've been doing like white label, you know, production work for different games, like building like a level here or there, or, you know, this music experience. And they were like, yeah, if you think you could do that on the business side, we could definitely build it. So that was how I baked myself into the company. We restructured it and we hit the ground running together at the top of 2021.
That's amazing. And I think John went to Napster, I saw a little while ago, right?
Yeah, he's over there. I can't wait to hear about what he's up to.
Yeah, we talked a little about hopping on this conference too, because he was going to show for a second. Okay, so then you're running Melon, you're a development agency, you've got ins at Roblox. What's the first thing you bring over there?
Music, all as much as possible. And really, I just wanted to uh, step one was just seeing how much we could support what Roblox was trying to do on the music front. And we were really passionate about being in that space. So we leaned into it, and really at that time, they were really curating what they wanted on the platform for, I mean, they were trying to navigate their label relationships and everything else. So as much as like I had great relationships myself, I can only do so much, and like just bringing it to John and the rest of the team and being like, how about so-and-so or so-and-so? And then they'd be like, well, we actually want to work with this artist, but could you guys build it? So we did another group on Atlanta called Why Don't We, a young pop group. Then we did I actually brought Zara Larson to them and created the partnership for them with Epic and first Sony. Well, actually, maybe that was the second Sony experience they did, because they did do Lil Nas X like on their own as like a community experience.
That's right.
Then
So
we helped John. Like John was like, "Hey, how do you guys do this? How do you do that?" And we were like, just feeding him info as the rest of the team was building that out.
you're talking about in-verse performances.
Great question. So up until Lil Nas X, the experiences that we were building were metaverse worlds that you could explore, and kind of like light touch. Like they're sort of meant to be experienced like over the course of like maybe a half hour of engagement, versus like a more persistent experience where you might go there every day. But you could kind of get through this world in like 15 minutes and then experience the concert for another 15 minutes. But they were mainly video based when we first started, and not avatar. And then when we did one more like that with KSI, which was amazing, we actually had almost 500,000 unique concurrents.
Wow.
In the first playthrough of his appearance. And I mean, that was staggering. We were all like, wait, is there like an extra zero on like there are 500,000 people like uniques in here all over the world. And we built like virtual goods out for him, and it was all, for all of these artists, they were all monetizing. But we started to get, after Lil Nas X, which was a great they made an avatar of him. And that was really eye-opening, because you could start to see how users were starting to have such deep engagement with the artist and with each other, like as friends in spaces. Like I watched my kids go in there together, and they were like, this is our first concert and we're in there together, and we're jumping around under Lil Nas X's feet. And like it was one step away from like being able to meet him.
Right.
And that was really interesting, because I think like for us as traditional music executives, and we've grown up and spent our lives, like the culmination of our work is going to see that artist live and seeing them connect in person with their audience. That's the most satisfying experience, right?
Yep, 100%. I mean, there's nothing like a live show. And I look at kids today. I've seen kids look at a guitar player, and they're just like they can't connect sometimes that he's playing the instrument. They think it's coming out of the speaker, and this guy's just air guitaring or miming. They don't realize that guy is producing that sound out of that instrument. It's
right. He's a master of his trade. But it was also like, well, that's amazing, but it's like that artist can only be somewhere in one place at one time and bring that magic. You're in Cleveland tonight, you're in Cincinnati tomorrow, but that's all you get to reach. Whereas like this is like an unlimited runway of geography that you can cover, and people, and the experience really was visceral. Like I did feel like for Gen A, watching Gen A engage, it was so natural that I was like, you know what, these kids feel like they're there, and I'm not gonna belittle them for the fact that they're not it's not in person. Like let's let's celebrate this.
It's what they know. And you're the first person I've ever heard use Gen A. So if that was coined right here, Josh Newman, ladies and gentlemen.
It's what the kids are called out there. Gen 8 is it, Gen Z. That's what we're dealing with.
But you were right. That is their world. That's their experience. You know, they may not have ever been to a live show before, and they're feeling like they're part of it. And I think also the avatar creation process, right? That gives them some freedom to. I had Deanna from Diverge on, one of the digital fashion folks, and what I got from her was this is a way to express yourself. I mean, we think of clothes, I mean, I think most guys think of them just something to wear, but it is a way to identify. It is a way to say, hey, I'm part of this tribe, or I love this or I love that. And she's like, we came out of Ukraine and it was a symbol of, just freedom to be able to dress a certain way and it was, I was like, wow, look at what's happening now. You could create any kind of wardrobe that you want and change it like that, right? So if you're walking into a nightclub, boom, you're walking into a store, boom, you're walking into an office space to collaborate, boom. I thought that's an amazing experience where now you can express yourself in ways you could never do before.
Hugely. And I think there is a real emotional connection to your avatar. And then seeing your friends and being like, oh, I know, like, that's so-and-so. And like, he's always wearing that, that rainbow mohawk is his vibe until he changes it. And then it's like, oh yeah, but he's also got a dinosaur head. And that's awesome. And, there are incredible innovators that are coming out of this space, like DressX and Blueberry and, the like Ready Player Me, and their avatar work is amazing. And
amazing.
Their interoperability across Web3, it's all fantastic. But to your point, like, so we pivoted into the avatar development process ourselves, and we were the first independent studio to do an avatar performance in Roblox, and we've kind of stuck with that. So we've done Ty Verdes, George Ezra, big UK artist, and we also did this incredible experience that was avatar based. I was introduced to a family who had lost their son in the Parkland shooting. The Oliver family, Manuel and Patricia Oliver, are the parents. And after that happened, they lost their son Joaquin, who was a beautiful, like 17-year-old, like the world was his oyster, incredibly special kid who was gunned down in that school. They've dedicated their lives to gun safety and changing the RAF. And through some very powerful investors, they were like, we want you to meet this family and try to bring their vision to life. And I was like, I don't know what their vision is, but I'm down for whatever they want to do. Let me meet with them. And as we met with them, they were like, every year we throw a big party for Joaquin, they nicknamed Guac. And they were like, let's throw a party for Guac. He loved basketball, he loved like street art, loved hip hop. And we always throw this awesome party for him. We want to throw it in the metaverse. We want to throw it in Roblox. And we want you guys to build that. And we were like, whoa, that is like a pretty massive responsibility. And we don't even know what that could even look like. But we sort of took the bait and we were like, of course, like we'll do anything that you possibly would want. And they were like, we actually want you to build an avatar of our son Joaquin. And we want all the kids that come into this game to meet him and for him to be the host of the party. Wow. And I was like, we would never suggest that, but if that's what you want, we'd be honored to try to make that happen. So we did. So we built an avatar of Joaquin. We did the voiceover, like we cleared the voiceover with his parents. And then we got Denzel Curry, who's a rapper out of Florida who they loved, to do a performance. And then we got Shepard Fairey, legendary street artist,
sure,
to give us all of his IP. And we made a spray paint game with his work And then we got him to do a portrait of Joaquin to premiere in the game. So that's like what the framework of this was. And then we made a sick basketball game on top of it. And so then, and of course, all the money from the virtual goods, we made like Obey, we made Obey goods, and all
Wow.
of the money went to their foundation. But really, like, I think we've had about 10 million visits to that space. About 2 million hoops have been thrown, and Denzel was thrilled. We created a whole, like, Denzel loves Star Wars. He's like Star Wars junkie. And we made like a whole like Tatooine landscape that he was performing in for this concert that we built. So, I mean, that's just like, to me, that's what the metaverse is all about right now. Like, just getting in there and
Going for it.
blowing out whatever the dream might be from these beautiful people that, you know, have visions for what you can build there.
Let me ask this. How did you guys animate him? Is it a keyboard move? Is it an emote? Is it something you programmed, or are you
Starts
tracking
with
somebody?
motion capture.
Cap. Okay.
And then we have an animation team that builds it out from there.
Okay.
And then it all needs to get rigged back into the experience.
Interesting. Okay, because I think that's one of the stumbling blocks that I've seen when you can move your avatar up, back, you can do a move, but where's the natural, unless it's programmed or unless you can put something in through, I've seen it in AR, but in full metaverse land, like Decentraland, you've got to build an emote. You have to program it, and it's a certain move. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And all these toolboxes have different limitations.
Right.
Both pros and cons, right? Not just limitations, but ability and assets for you to create in. And it's really just like shifting sands. But to your point, what you said earlier is like, this is the second chapter in an extremely long novel that we're all writing together. And like, it's kind of like it's got to be like we're probably at like the beeper phase of like the mobile trajectory. Like,
Not to the flip phone yet, right? You're
yeah, no,
still
I don't even think we're in the flip phone. Yeah, I don't think we've made it there yet.
no, we're still crawling. It
Yeah.
is. I saw a technology and at this conference we'll see it, but cell phone based digital skins, full motion cap from your phone. I know there's, like you said, limitations with each platform, but I think as those doors start to open, you're going to be able to do this without a lot of gear, without having to invest and have a lot.
Yeah, there's some killer companies that are making some great stuff, like Move.io. Like, is one that I've been checking out.
Yep. Yep.
Great. We're trying to figure out like, how does that solve some of our, like, the interoperability between a lot of these platforms is sometimes is not all there yet. And we're actually trying to like retrofit like our needs into some of the technology that we're seeing that looks incredible, but it's like, it doesn't quite fit together in exactly the way you'd think it would. There's still a lot of manual labor to do.
Are you seeing companies like Epic just saying, "Hey, we're the standard, and we've got Unity, and it's going to be like this"? Or do you think there's going to be a coming together of the tribes at some point where they all go, "Hey, let's all agree on a standard, even if we're the smallest company and you're the biggest company"?
Oh, I think that it's like the unification and interoperability is such a huge challenge for all of us. And I think, it's very hard to see a world where Unity and Unreal are like playing in the same sandbox, like happily together. I mean, these are their core businesses.
Sure.
But as the user, you want to be able to buy something that, is your avatar skin and your identity, and that seamlessly stays with you from platform to platform that you're on. So it behooves everyone to figure that part of it out, because that is a big part, that's a big stumbling block that we all face right now.
The analogy is a CD, right? Every label has different music and different artists, but they all have the same CD to play it on, because otherwise the consumer's not going to have four different. It was the Betamax VHS thing, right?
Exactly. Like you don't want to buy the same thing like 6 times in a row and be like, great, when I go in here, I got to spend another $50 like getting my vibe on here. Like when my avatar, over here is killer, like I just want to be this person.
Right.
So
Well, you see
I
it with
really hope
crypto,
so.
right? Crypto, you got Sushi and Uniswap and a couple of platforms now where you can wrap, and instead of having to go through an exchange and sell it and then buy it, and then it's now you can just go, I'm going to buy it in this currency and use it across, and hopefully that helps. And I think, like you said, I think it has to get there because consumers are not going to put up with where it is.
I mean, that's the promise of Web3, whereas Web2, we're looking at like, it's just, can these massive walled garden businesses pivot quickly enough to solve that problem? I mean, their businesses are amazing as it is. Like, what do they really care? Whereas like the community of Web3 is so like, that's the whole promise of it, right? It's like ownable assets that obviously everybody's working on making it so that you can use it across platform.
I think when the brands really put their foot down, and we're seeing, I can't believe how much money is coming in from fashion brands, from food brands, which, no avatar ever gets hungry, do they? So why would
No,
you?
we've built all of Chipotle's experiences in Roblox. It's a riot. I mean,
Burrito Builder, I played it. I played it today. It was,
oh,
I
that's
thought,
awesome. Did you
what
roll some
can
burritos?
I blew a couple because it's like Lucy in the cookie factory, whatever. The thing keeps going across on the conveyor, and unless you
Yeah.
get the order right, it falls off. But before that, I thought, what? How could they integrate Chipotle? Right? I know the brand, everybody knows the brand, but avatars don't eat, and what could you possibly want to go in there for? And I looked at it, I thought, this is the most creative. It was amazing. My son looked at it and he goes, this is great. He's 12. And we're like,
Oh,
wow.
that's awesome.
So yeah, it was really an interesting experience. And it wasn't what you expect, right? It was really relevant to Chipotle because you're building a burrito just like you would if you went into the store and ordered one.
Right. You got your order going, but then you get to like wrap it yourself, and it's pretty fun. It's like, I think that as, creative studios that are shepherding in brand partners, which obviously, there's a mad dash to get into the space. If you take a step back and look at what's already on the platform, there's so much incredible content being created by the community already that you really have to ask yourself, like, what does a brand have, like, what does a brand actually have to do here? Like, they have to bring something to the community that's elevated, that, that an 18-year-old or a 16-year-old didn't already build, that is fantastic already. And that's really a challenge. And sometimes we get that right. And sometimes, we as a community of developers that are on the front line of this, we also make, sometimes we can't answer that. We're not answering that question well enough. And I really am trying to challenge ourselves to be like, look, if you're going to come into, if you're going to come into this branded world, you have to give something to the community that they can't get anywhere else. And that should be the brand's authentic value, that's their value proposition.
Who did you guys create that, or was it driven by Chipotle, or both of you? Or
Those
how?
guys are really smart. They are uncanny at how well first of all, they know their brand. Like, they're one of those companies that, like, they live and breathe their brand.
Sure.
Like, you talk to them and they're like, this is the history of the brand. This is what our consumers love about it. They're so smart about, like, even like real world physical product. They're like, let's do like a cilantro, like eyeliner with like elf makeup or whatever. Like, it's like, all right, you guys have it. So when they when they first approached us, they had some really strong conceptual ideas about what they wanted to do, which was great. And then they were like, would this work? And we were like, well, you might want to, like, from an engagement perspective, you might want to tweak it X, Y, and Z. Since then, we've done like 3 or 4 more very large experiences, and now we're sort of we're in the room from the inception of all creative.
Nice. I mean, I just thought it was well thought out. The learning curve was flat. I mean, you walk in and understand immediately what's going on, and within, I don't know, 10 seconds, you're engaged in playing the game, which to me is how it should be. You shouldn't have to read the instruction manual for an hour. It's like, how does this work? And let's go. And it was, yeah, again, brand relevant. It wasn't, oh, you're, picking out shoes. No, you're building Chipotle food, which,
Yeah, and it's great when you can work with a brand that has a clear identity. I think it's going to be a lot hard. Like, it becomes harder when a brand is more generic. And you're like, well, you want to be here, we want you to be here, but what should you do? And then sometimes you have to take a step back and be like, really what would be maybe amazing would be like, could you bring this game experience that maybe couldn't be created any other way except with your financial support? Can you actually like support the community in building something ridiculous that, couldn't be made without your underwriting? Or could it be a music experience? Could we bring an artist to the platform that normally you'd never get to see there, and you're actually helping make that happen? So I think that sometimes those are really interesting opportunities, and you have to just look at it a little bit left of center, that it's like, do we need this, gamified like tax game from this tax company that really wants to, be the first in for like 18-year-olds that need to do their taxes? But could you also could you bring like the craziest experience with like all of your favorite, stars in your world that you could never see any other way? Like, great, that's an amazing way to get some brand affinity and bring something that matters to the platform.
well, I know you guys did, I think, NFL Tycoon. You could do like TurboTax Tycoon, right? Let's see who can save the most money on their taxes. In fact, you're doing Elon Musk's tax return.
That would be hilarious.
Let's see how much money you can save.
Poor kids. Poor kids. Are we really going to make them do that? But yeah, I mean, there is a lot of like interesting, like, there's so many, like, to your point, yeah, we've been working with the NFL for about a year now, and it was great. It was a great learning experience to work with the NFL defending the shield, and also being the keepers of the 32 IPs that are under their umbrella. It's been a pretty wild experience. We're about to launch our next game with them that I think we've had so many learnings from that, getting a chance to work with them. And I think we've now kind of figured out, like, what does the Roblox community really want from, like, what's the intersection between the NFL, which traditionally is, a slightly older brand, where something that you said before, it was like, you used to go out and play like football or whatever with your friends.
Sure.
Now you're online all the time. You kind of have 2 different sports fans now. Like, one is like the super fan that's still like into everything and knows everything about it. That's a much more micro section of youth culture. Then you have a whole other segment that has so many other things going on that, like, the details of sports are almost like lost on them, and we need to kind of help the leagues engage with this younger demo, and to crack that code and create gamification that they're really going to care about is a little bit tricky. And I think we're onto it with this next iteration that we have, but I have to say that it's been a challenge for us. Maybe not we've done some great work with it, and also I think we've had a lot of learnings that I'm very appreciative to have had an opportunity to get through.
No, I obviously you're not going to hit it on the head every time, but I think you're right. Statistics in sports And I see it even on the TV networks, right? You got the pitching, strike zone, and just stuff as it's happening live, the data that can be driven from that, and the way that you can gamify that in a sense where you're watching it almost like layered, right? Here's the actual game. Here's how you're watching it with a bunch of information on top that you can maybe customize so that it makes the experience work for you. I think that's coming, if it's not already here. And also, color commentary, right? I've seen a couple games. Well, I think we were watching a game with the Manning brothers, Peyton and Eli.
Oh yeah, they've got like their own ESPN,
Yeah,
like they got their own channel going, right? It's great.
that's you got the personalities, right? And these guys are experts, and then you're watching them call the game. And that to me, I don't know how much better it gets. I mean, that's instead of an announcer that's got a great voice but doesn't know the game at all, you've got these guys that are very deep and
They've lived it, right?
they happen to be brothers. Can't get better
Yeah,
than that.
I love that. It's all really interesting. Like with sports and gaming too, it's also like you've got these tried and true platforms like Madden, where it's like they really have gone so deep into the sport that it's like if you are like a total football head, you're probably going into like Madden's perfect for you. Like it is layers upon layers of stats. And but then if you're like like how do we engage the casual gamer who maybe doesn't know anything about it other than they're like, that's actually a pretty cool looking logo, that Buccaneers logo, and I wouldn't mind getting a parrot or a pirate for my pet while I'm going through this game. And like I just want to like level up and like get stuff. And like how do we kind of like sneak in the broccoli and the vegetables, while they're like having this game experience.
I think that's the magic secret. Are you guys looking? I know you're Roblox focused, but are you building on other platforms as well? How does the environment look?
Yeah, I mean, we're very interested in Fortnite. I think it's it's also where youth culture uh is congregated. Uh their next round, their next toolbox that they're putting out, Creative 2, rumored to be like next level. And the current toolbox is pretty dope. And there's a lot of interesting map building that you can do in there. So we're starting to pilot there. I also think that Sandbox is a really interesting platform. It doesn't have the kind of audience that we've been talking about, but they're so committed to the game building toolbox that we really want to try to get in there and see if we can add something while it's still being baked in the oven,
Nice.
and see if we can bring something to that. And then, as I mentioned before, I really like Zepeto. It's a very whimsical, you can actually build in Unity, so you can build some pretty cool looking things in there, but it's a totally different vibe. It's like 70% female.
Hmm.
It's the biggest it's a Korean owned company. Biggest markets are Jakarta or Indonesia and Philippines. And so much of like tech adoption is coming from those markets that it's very interesting to engage with those platforms.
It's one thing I've noticed, living here in LA and New York, you forget not everybody has access, right? And there are people that would love to come and visit a city or a location or an experience, and they may never have the resources to do that. And I think this technology gives you, I keep saying it again, it's like a dream. If you could give someone a dreamlike experience of going into a Chipotle, going to an NFL game, going to Paris, France, whatever it might be, you're opening up minds and you're opening up that to the world in a way that I think will change how people live. It's that profound.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much creativity that is going to get pumped into this space. And hopefully it's positive and it's something that brings people together in the real world as well as online, and it's making people feel good, which I really hope it's making people feel good and not more isolated. And that's one of the problems that we're obviously facing with social media and screens and not being together as much as we were before.
That's a great point. And I think one of the other things I learned early with this is the metaverse experience is communal, right? One of the things you can do is bring people with you, bring your friends, meet your friends, make friends. Whereas Web 2 is kind of almost one to one. I'm going to buy something and then I bought it. This is like you can buy it with your friend. You can go shopping together,
Yeah.
which I think brings a whole different dynamic to it and does hopefully build community and build some unity. Because I agree. I mean, we should celebrate our similarities and not just focus on differences. And this one-to-one channel does become isolating. So hopefully there's a lot of progress towards that. I want to thank you for coming on, Josh. I know it was short notice.
It's
Everybody,
great to talk to you, and it's great to talk to someone that's been through the same war as an artist manager. And yeah, it's great to see where everything's evolved for you too. And I do think it's such an interesting coming out of those starting blocks is very unique. And I think we obviously can relate to each other a lot through that.
100%. We're gonna have many more conversations. And everybody, Josh is gonna be at Futureworlds 2022, which is November 12th in person. If you want to come out and see him and continue this conversation, please go to futureworlds.co.
Yeah,
Um,
it's going to be great.
Matthew Nuzareth from Sandbox, you just mentioned, is going to be there as well. So a lot of the
Yeah,
guys.
we'll have to hang out. It's going to be great, and the lineup looks terrific. I'm very happy to be a part of it.
It's we wanted to do it because we're like you. We're just meeting people and designers and developers, and we're like, why don't everybody just get together? And hopefully, it's a creative community that we're building, and good will come out of it. So thank
I'm
you again.
sure. Thanks
And
so much for having me, Steve. See you soon.